So first, I will say a few words about my journey, my background, and why this topic is so dear to me. So my name is Muriel. I have always been interested in people's well-being and protection of the planet. So that led me to do a master's degree in sustainable development in 1992. Years later, I trained as a psychotherapist and a coach. And in 2008, I created a company called Alma Gaia that put our psychological well-being and ecological awareness at the core of its mission. Not surprisingly, I like to spend time in nature, so much so that a few years ago, I spent a month living in a rainforest with some tribes. And that had a massive impact on me and my commitment to do more. So since then, I became quite active in charities, or particularly one called Pachamama, that is working for the protection of the rainforest in the Amazon. So that's a bit about me. So I would like to start with a little story. I'd like you to imagine that you are a coach and you are coaching a manager in a big corporation. And the meeting room is on the 9th floor of a very tall building. And the client has set a very clear agenda. He needs coaching on improving his leadership skills to increase the sales performance of his team in the next semester. So these are issues you are comfortable with. The meeting is going well. You are both engaged. Suddenly, the fire alarm goes off, but the client doesn't move, no reaction. So we think, oh, maybe it was a false alarm. And the meeting continues as normal. But the bell continues to ring, and you become increasingly uncomfortable. Still no reaction from people around you, from the client. So suddenly you see smoke and fire through the window. And you know that if you don't intervene, you're both going to burn. So for what it is, this story illustrates the current dilemma that we face, or I believe we can face in coaching. At what stage do we need to raise issues that affect us both in many ways? I mean, in my experience, clients do not come to us primarily to talk about the ecological state of the planet, right? Their agenda is about professional and personal life. And we are all trained to respect deeply and to work with the client's agenda. I mean, this is fundamental to our work ethics. So the question is, what do we do with this? How do we respect the client's agenda while taking into account, or at least without neglecting, a much bigger agenda that is affecting us all? I mean, there was a book published in 2009, just after the financial crisis of 2008. The book is called Where Were the Coaches When the Banks Went Down? And I was drawn to the title of this book, because today we could probably ask, where are we coaches when the planet is burning? Do we have a role to play? And if so, how? Again, this is because unlike any other agenda, this is one that is affecting us all. So listen, I do not have all the answers, but I believe it is worth questioning ourselves here today. I wanted to share with you the common responses and reactions that actually are with these issues. And this is coming from a book called Active Hope that maybe some of you are familiar with, a book by Joanna Macy and Chris Johnston. And lots of reaction that we can have, certainly. So some of them, I don't believe it is that bad. Or it is too far away in time and space. It doesn't affect me. I feel fatigued, overwhelmed. This is just too much negative information. We hear a lot of this information threatens my political and commercial interests. Sometimes, we feel that there's no point doing anything because, hey, it won't make any difference. So these are some of those common responses. I will, maybe some of your clients maybe mentioned them already, of you feel them. So next slide, you please. So I wanted to expand on this with a more hopeful ending. I have adapted this graph from the 5 stages of grief by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler. And I have adapted it from a place of eco-anxiety and eco-grief going to eco-hope. So if we're going to follow this together. So on the left-hand side, you see the current state of what we call business as usual, which is a state of, consuming, producing without caring, whether caring for natural resources, where growth and more is better. And then we hit crisis because we hear all these news about degradation, pollution, climate change, and this affects us. So what are our reactions and feelings? They're not necessarily that linear, but I will go through them in this way today. The first one can be denial. It can't be true. This is horrible, and this is very scary. Actually, this is about existential threat. So I don't want to hear, I don't want to see. State of denial. Another one is bargaining. This is the kind of thing that sometimes I would tell myself, well, if we all switch to electric cars, and if I'm really good and I'm not going to use so much plastic, then surely this is going to make a difference. With all those news piling up, sometimes we feel anger and frustration, even rage. We hear corporates and politicians not taking the right action, and we blame them. So this is all their fault. So feelings of anger here. But when things become far too much, I've been seeing, for instance, piles of garbage dumps when I've been traveling, or complete forest being eradicated, then feels start to be really, really heavy. And it so happens that we can become quite distressed and feeling very hopeless and sometimes even depressed. Feeling of we are all doomed, or what are we going to do? And what I'd like to add here is an extra feeling that something was touched on earlier, about the guilt, shame and guilt, because I am part of this mess. I have created it. I'm consuming plastic, I fly planes. So there's a massive sense of guilt. So what do we do with this? How do we jump up again? I think self-care is really important, as always, but particularly here. And here I'd like to look at looking at our own ecology here. How am I looking after myself, my own health, physical and mental health? Because if I'm looking after my ecology well, then there's stronger chance that I will look at what's happening outside of me, with people around me, and bigger issues. There's a feeling of acceptance, where this is what it is, and recognizing it, and then what do we do with it? So acceptance is important. Then we jump up to resilience, adaptation, with the feeling that, hey, I'm not alone here, and there are zillions of people on this planet that do care like I do, and maybe if we connect together, we can have new ideas, we can share information, and we can build resilience. And then last, but definitely the most important one, is to go to action. Action for sustainable change. What am I going to do? And realizing that, hey, it may not be easy and it's not simple, but I can do something about it. So look at those questions. Do you think that coaching has a role to play to address climate change and environmental problems? Maybe I'd like to hear from you. Have your clients ever mentioned these concerns? Let alone have you mentioned that to them? And how prevalent do you think these issues will be in corporate coaching conversations in 2030? So we're looking at today and tomorrow here. I'd like to move on now to some examples that we can, we can use, giving you some ideas, some tools. So, for instance, this can start quite early on in the chemistry session when we introduce ourselves, say, hey, this is what I have done. And by the way, I am interested in those issues. I come with that mindset. And you can, if that feels comfortable, you can gently suggest, how open would you be to include the natural world in our sessions if this feels appropriate. Next slide, please. Jab is going to be very happy about that one. That's exactly what you suggested. We have this wonderful tool, which is called the Wheel of Life, and where we look at different facets of our life. And what about including a green slice here, which is our relationship with nature, with the understanding that, hey, this is equally important as all the other 8, right? I mean, relationship with nature is connected with our personal growth, with our health, with our career decisions. So I believe that would be a nice inclusion. Next one, please. I think, Geraldine, you mentioned, was it, I think it was Geraldine, Liz Aspie, oh, no, it was Una, sorry, Una mentioned the systemic framework by Linda Aspie, who kindly gave me the permission to share this today. So this is a coach who is openly working with ecology, and she devised this framework so that, it can start conversation with her clients. So that was, just an idea here. And last but not least, purpose coaching. I believe, in my experience with my clients, this is usually where clients mention their concerns about bigger agendas. It can be about social, but also ecological issues. This is usually after burnout, when they start to wonder about their impacts, what kind of impact they want to have on the world. And these are kind of questions that we can ask. What issues do you care about? What kind of world would you like your children to inherit? And just see what happens, really, where it takes you.